The recent DevCon event highlighted the need for user experience improvements. There were more than a few talks dedicated to discussing this topic. But more than that, it's become a topic of discussion by a number of participants. The effects of this are also being seen across videos on YouTube and on crypto Twitter. My own team members attended events recently where they were not only received with great enthusiasm but also told this in plain English. But anecdotal evidence aside, Trump has announced that the US will be holding Bitcoin in their reserves. This not only legitimizes the industry as a whole, but opens up the floodgates for several new applications of crypto, likely beginning in the financial sector. As an example, Stripe's recent acquisition of the blockchain company called Bridge for $1.1 billion is just the first example of companies that are acting in anticipation of favorable regulations coming into the industry. But if Stripe is doing it, you can bet your bottom dollar that others are going to follow suit. New use cases are going to be found, and designers that are well versed with crypto will be required to tame the complexity of crypto and make it palatable to the mainstream. That's what we are looking at in the next few years, and we are only getting started. When I got started learning about this industry, the hardest part getting my head around was the complexity. It took me a long time to form a good mental model that I could use to make sense of the concepts that I was meant to simplify. Chris Dixon, a general partner at A16Z, proposed that Web 1 was a read-only, Web 2 was read and write, and Web 3 was a read, write, and own. I think this is a useful model to understand the functionalities that were brought in by Web 3. But while that's a great shortcut, I want to examine the evolution of the web from the structural point of view, as I feel that explains the purpose a lot better. You may have heard people referring to the idea of the open internet and the free and open sharing of ideas that was the backbone of the culture of the early web. But I feel the reasons for this was not so much cultural but structural. Encryption wasn't possible in the early days because the US government placed a restriction on the exporting of such code. Encryption is a requirement for the secure communication of information such as credit cards online, but also to the idea of digital property rights. So this resulted in the free sharing of information online, and it didn't come about because of some other romantic notions that are bandied about, but because of the structural reasons behind it. It's hard to have such an outside-in perspective on Web 2 because we live in it. But it's just another waypoint in the evolution of the web. While encryption was possible and commerce started to proliferate in Web 2, it didn't have an easy start. Initially, people had to build their own servers, get static IP addresses, get internet connections with sufficient bandwidth, get merchant bank accounts from banks, handle their chargebacks and fraud, build their own websites, etc. in order to sell products online. It is natural that these complexities were handled by specialists and the super aggregation that took place within this space eventually left only a few key players that now dominate everything we want to do online. Google took over search, Amazon Web Services took over hosting, Shopify took over e-commerce sites, Stripe took over payments, and social media channels took over self-publication of information previously handled by blogs. Any interaction today between two individuals is facilitated by these players and consequently moderated by them. If you don a North American view of the world, you may not spot the problem as easily, but just adopt the viewpoint of someone living in Sudan or Spain and you'll immediately see it. All online commerce is only allowed between US approved entities, and all ideas professed online are moderated by Bay Area sensibilities. We need the web to be more egalitarian, where local structures and perspectives are valued, and a place where individuals can direct their own conversations. This is where Web3 comes in. Web3 does three things essential to building an egalitarian internet. First, it brings cryptographic technology into the hands of individual users. They can now create digital things signed by them, giving them ownership of the digital work heretofore impossible. This technology also allows the transfer of value directly between individuals, enabling commerce to take place between anyone, anywhere, without the complexity that previously existed. Second, it brings a permissionless world computer that allows for applications to be built by the individuals and hosted on it. This brings about a democratization force like no other and levels the playing field once again. Third, it brings a censorship-resistant platform to enable anyone of any stripe to participate on it. This network is decentralized and cannot be controlled by any single individual, and therefore provides a platform for free expression and the free exchange of ideas. Understanding Web3's decentralized principles and cryptographic technologies is crucial for UX designers who want to create better experiences. Keeping the underlying principles that gave rise to Web3 and the power dynamics at play, you will be able to design effective interfaces that serve users while being true to the field. Here's a detailed breakdown of the structure of Web3. The different stack. In Web2, you have companies that own the entire application stack. They own the servers, the databases, the backend software, the payment layer, and the front-end UI layer. Users go to these companies and create accounts with them, and their usage information is stored on the databases owned and operated by these same companies. In Web3, the network is composed of a huge number of nodes and they are the equivalents of a Web2 server. The front end may be built by the company, and the users that want to use the software can just sign in with their wallets and begin using it. Their data is stored on the public blockchain. The results of these differences is vast. Let's consider the scenario where the application is a social media app and the company wants to implement a feature that some users object to. In Web2, they have no choice but to leave the platform, which also means leaving behind all the data they generated and all the friends they made on the platform. In Web3, there is no such thing as locking out the user, as the data is always available on the public blockchain. If one front-end provider is charging a very high price for their app, they could use another front-end provider and still have access to all their data and their relationships. Permissionlessness. If I wanted to develop this sort of an application on Web2, I need to get API access from the provider. Let's say, for example, Twitter. To get that access, I firstly need to submit a short essay on what I intend to do with my API access to my own account, and then agree to the terms and conditions set by the Twitter's lawyers. After this, my access remains conditional, and if I built something super popular but built something Twitter didn't agree with, or maybe felt like they would want to do themselves, they can pull my API access. There's none of that on Web3. Since the data is stored on a public blockchain, it will be publicly accessible for anyone to come and write programs that can use that data without asking anyone for permission to do so and without terms and conditions. Digital property rights. A big part of the reason for the existence of Web3 has to do with digital property rights. Specifically, if you're anything like me, all your work exists on the digital medium alone. How can you claim ownership of your work, of a blog or an article, or even artwork? With Web3, you can. You can mint it on a blockchain to claim ownership and lock in the date and time of publication. Ownership of data. The data that is typically generated by users is publicly stored, but private data is typically encrypted using the user's public key. This means that the data can only be decrypted by the user and no one else. This puts the users squarely in control of their own information, not any corporation. Mining this data is also impossible if it's encrypted, so users don't ever have to worry about being exploited. Composability. But Web3 is built on standards and protocols, so they are highly composable. This means that developers can treat all data sources and all projects as if it were their own. For instance, in the example given earlier, you can imagine a developer creating a different front end that not only gets the social media posts from one platform, but could choose to include background music from the user's song library on an entirely different platform and create an audiovisual experience altogether new. This is possible because of the composability of Web3. Pseudonymity. It is a misnomer that people think that Web3 is anonymous. It is not. Every transaction on the blockchain is signed by a wallet, so all the data is identifiable as belonging to that wallet holder. The only piece of information that one doesn't have is who the owner of the wallet is. But if anyone ever establishes that a certain wallet belongs to a specific person, for example, they immediately stop being anonymous and their data becomes transparent on the chain, otherwise known as getting doxed. Sometimes this is a deliberate thing. For example, if a user wants social recognition in a game, they can establish their ownership of several items they have collected in their wallet by demonstrating their ownership of that wallet. But often users want to remain unknown and do not want to be doxed if they can help it. Speed. Because of the decentralized structures, speed is often slow when compared to AWS or other such servers. This is something to keep in mind when designing systems. You have to afford for the latency, as the result of actions may actually take a long time to be written to the blockchain and are not as immediate as when using equivalent systems built on Web2 standards. But all this is changing and the lines of division are being blurred. Key challenges in Web3 and opportunities for designers. For Web3 to become mainstream, there are some key challenges on the user-facing side. These are also the opportunities for UX designers to come in and find solutions for. The wallet. If a user wants to do anything on the Web3, they need a wallet. Well, a lot of user-friendly wallets do exist, and some even go so far as to allow Google sign-ins to create accounts within these wallets. The purpose and usage of these wallets is not very well understood by users. This is an area that needs a lot of work, as there are no direct analogies in Web2. Communicating the intricacies of public-private key cryptography is a challenge. Managing security. One of the disadvantages of Web3 is that it only has one level of security. It's always the highest level of security. It's the public-private key pair and nothing else. Unlike in Web2, where you sign in only with a login and password on an app of low importance and with a login and password and its two-factor authentication to your email service, and possibly a login, password and OTP and Face ID on a banking application, there are no other levels in Web3. You can see the problems that occur if a user started using the same account for social apps as well as to store their money, and there was only one level of security that exists for both, and that got compromised. They end up losing everything. Also, Web3 is pseudonymous, not anonymous, as I mentioned before. So if a user docs themselves on a social app they could easily find out, their social network could easily find out everything about their finances as well. Finally, in case a user forgets a password in Web2, They know they can go through some steps and regain access to their accounts. This is not the case in Web3 as there's no recovery. If the user doesn't do a good job storing their passwords, they may lose access to their account forever. If the user doesn't do a good job storing their private keys, they may lose access to their accounts forever. These are all challenges that need design intervention to solve as an industry. Liquidity fragmentation. The blockchain trilemma expresses the problem of blockchains against the dimensions of decentralization, scalability, and security, and states that any blockchain can have any two of these three qualities but will need to sacrifice the third. For this reason, there are several blockchains out there that cater to different needs, with some providing security while others are tuned for scalability. Consequently, different amounts of capital are spread across these blockchains, creating fragmentations of liquidity, and users feel the need to constantly move their capital between these chains. But I think design could solve this problem in a number of different ways. Public relations. Some regulators hate this field because they see it as a threat to their ability to control their population. Crypto has therefore long been portrayed as a scam by the mainstream media. The field has also had several grifters who perpetrated scams, and those have also created very bad press. But just like the airline industry, each mishap has informed the field about how to improve. Web3 truly has reached a level of maturity today where it can serve mainstream use cases and make the lives of end users a lot better. But we'll have to overcome this PR hurdle. As a designer, you can help. The search for mainstream use cases. While there is already a DeFi use case, there are NFTs, and it is used to transfer money between people and to pay for crypto use cases like gas fees. There are very few use cases where a mainstream user can use crypto for. There are real-world assets, crypto collaterals for fiat loans, pay with crypto, and other potential ideas. But there may be many, many more. UX designers that have worked in other fields could probably identify the application of this technology in those fields. AI and crypto. No list will be complete without the mention of AI, and that's true here too. There are very few interesting applications where AI agents have been creating crypto coins and utilizing it for things determined by these agents. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, and designers would be able to identify more opportunities as this is a very creative space for its application. Design trends to keep in mind. Demand for design. Unlike any other point in time, there is a deep desire from projects to improve their design. Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, has highlighted the importance of UX in several of his talks. He is of course talking about the technological improvements that would improve the user experience on the surface layer of the tech. But nonetheless, there is a focus on UX like no other point in time, and we are seeing the conversation shift towards making those things more usable by the regular mainstream user. Changing demographics. While Web3 was built by engineers for engineers, it is changing today. It is attracting far more non-technically inclined people who may be considered early adopters. So interfaces have to cater to both audiences at the same time. While engineers may need all the details and want to exercise control over how a transaction is performed, the early adopters tend to flock towards apps that remove the complexity and offer an opinionated, maybe fastest transaction speeds, but simple experience. Building interfaces that cater to both may be the order of the day, where interfaces can reveal more complex controls on demand. Changing visual styles. A couple of years ago, all of Web3 was specifically looking inwards and there was a strong visual identity. Colors were saturated, there were a ton of gradients and a lot of space themes. A lot of orbs, balls, and atoms, and everything felt very cutting edge. And everything was dark themed, possibly because the audience it was catering to were mainly male developers. But things have been changing. Things have grown a lot lighter now, and the visual language has become a lot more accessible to the mainstream. The copy used on the websites also seem to be plain English these days and not filled with jargon and acronyms. Reasons to be in this field. After all that's been said above, if you still need reasons to get into Web3, here are a few. Setting standards. There are several aspects that haven't been figured out as yet. If you're anything like me, you enjoy working in the unknown and figuring out and building standards. As an example, a project called Uniswap presented a very simple interface for swapping tokens, and thus become the de facto standard interface that is being used anywhere tokens are swapped. Or take the way MetaMask did onboarding in its wallet. That's become the standard for all wallets today. In the same way, there are a ton of other aspects of Web3 that are still being figured out, and you could be there contributing new ideas into the mix. The second reason is that there's been enormous growth in the field. 2024 was a great year, but 2025 is looking to be an amazing year ahead for the industry. Now is the best time to get in, learn, and contribute to this field. Imagine being able to catch the next wave of technological growth at the right time. You'll do phenomenally well. Professional growth. If you're tired of building e-commerce portals, come over to Web3 because you'll be working on something brand new every day. Decentralized finance, NFT projects, decentralized social, decentralized science, etc. These are all fields within Web3 that are being discovered every day. If you're interested in learning new things and staying on the bleeding edge, you should definitely consider the shift. Doing it for the money. If nothing else, do it because the money is good. Web3 projects typically pay very well because there aren't a lot of designers who understand it. But that's not all. Contributors are typically also given project tokens as part of the compensation in place of ESOPs. While some ESOPs go up by 20%, if you're lucky, tokens on the other hand can sometimes go up by 20x. So in case of an upside, the values could be life-changing. Conclusion. While I've given you the highlights, this is by no means meant to be an exhaustive coverage. I only wanted to provide you an introduction that makes sense for designers. For a better understanding of this world, I have collated a list of resources that may be useful to you. Find this list on my website so that I can keep this list up to date, and find the link for that in the description below. But of course, you can reach out to me directly or in the comments below if you'd like to. I'd absolutely love to have that conversation. I hope I've earned a like from you. Don't feel shy about hitting the button, as that's a great way to let me know that you found value from my work. Oh, and if you've decided to jump into Web3, get a wallet like Rabby, Zerion, or even the Arcana wallet, and leave your public wallet address in the comments below. And I'll send you a gift to commemorate your entry to Web3. Otherwise, I wish you the best in your journey into this wonderful world. Come in and do your thing and make it amazing.